Alright, welcome to part 1 of my new series looking at Russ Miller's The PreFlood World, Noahs Ark, and Dinosaurs. I want to get just a shred of background here before I start, a little piece of background. The reason I'm starting this today is my original intention for this afternoon was I was going to attempt the Brett Keane Challenge. I noticed a lot of people have been doing it, and it looks like a lot of fun, and I think I should try it. Unfortunately, when I started it and I was recording the Keane Challenge, I realized partway through, it's like, this is way too easy. I don't understand why this is such a challenge for people. And I realized I was watching the wrong video. And I tried to watch the real one with, well, I didn't last very long on it. Just to show you right here.
Screwing around! This isn't funny, you stupid bitch! Sorry.
Yep, darn good.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I can't do this.
What a handsome motherfucker.
The timing on this actually works out really well because I relatively recently got a comment from Russ. I'm gonna read this out to you guys just so you know the kind of man that I'm responding to. Now this is a comment regarding my 20-part video series I made to him previously. Okay, so here's what he said. Russ wrote, "I actually took my time to watch your supposed refutation of what I reveal about Darwinism. What an utter waste of my time. I thought perhaps you had something worth me seeing. I was completely wrong. Still, I must say thank you. I would have had to have pay someone a couple grand to go through my info as you did. Good to know you found no errors worth mentioning. Fucking douche."
My name is Russ Miller of Creation, Evolution, and Science Ministries. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Hi, Russ. My name's Lithoded Man, but you can call me Bad Penny, maybe Thorn in Your Side, or if you prefer, the Tick on Your Ass. And I'm from Alaska.
And tonight we're going to talk about a pre-flood world theory and Noah's Ark of all things. Why Noah's Ark? Well, Jesus refers to the Ark as a historical fact. Therefore, if someone doesn't believe in Noah's Ark, it's easy for a scoffer to take them to where Jesus refers to the Ark as a fact and weaken their faith in the Lord Jesus.
Hopefully the problem is clear to everybody here. It's been pointed out and explained by people much better than I on biblical literacy or biblical inerrancy. Have done a fantastic job of explaining this problem. You are making the claim that a figure in the Bible, Noah, and his achievements are proven by or verified by Jesus, another figure in the Bible. Okay? Now, I don't know whether Jesus was a real historical figure or not. I don't really know. I don't have enough information. I haven't studied the evidence for or against it in enough detail to make any positive or negative claims on that, and I won't do so. I don't see any reason why there could not have been a historical Jesus at all. I mean, I don't. It seems likely to me, but I don't. That's from a position of ignorance. However, if it can be shown that he's a historical figure, can it be shown that he said the things attributed to him in the New Testament? Can that be factual? And if he did say those things in the New Testament, and if that could be demonstrated, is it known that could he have been mistaken? And I know you believe Jesus is God and therefore inerrant himself. Okay, let's say he's not mistaken. Let's say he's just reflecting on a story. Just like in the days of Noah, a myth that everybody he's speaking to is very familiar with. What if that's what that meant? I'm just pointing it out. You're using the Bible to prove the Bible, and that fails.
And I think the pre-flood world was really beyond our comprehension as well.
No, Russ. What's truly beyond comprehension is the fact that science education in this country is so poor that any man, woman, and child would buy this load of bullshit you're delivering for 1 second. That's what's beyond comprehension and fundamentally sad, in my opinion.
So we're going to look at a pre-flood theory. I want you to realize it's just a theory. The pre-flood world is gone. It was destroyed in the flood, and it's not there to test, study, and observe today. And there are actually several good theories on what the pre-flood world may have looked like. This is just one of several theories.
Before I respond to that, I think I'm going to do a little reading from the Holy Scriptures. This is Book of Origins, chapter 3. But Rustical was craftier than the other douchebags in the science denial movement. But seriously, see what he did there? By making the claim that his idea is just a theory, he's equating it with the theory of natural selection, a theory of common descent, the theory of planetary origins, or any other theory that points at an old Earth, or that, well, frankly, anything in science. If it's not directly testable, repeatable, observable, whatever, it therefore is just an idea somebody came up with. No evidence for or against it. But Russ is extremely wrong here. This is really critically important, because if there was indeed a vapor canopy covering the Earth, if there was indeed a global flood that covered the Earth in water at one point in time, if there was 8 people who survived such a global flood, there would be, the conditions wouldn't be repeatable, true, but there would be evidence for it. And the evidence would explain what we see. The evidence would fit that theory better than other theories. And that's where this whole thing fails, okay? Does that make any sense to you at all?
Now, some people think, and this is where we're going to go into a theory, that there may have been some sort of a water vapor or ice canopy above the atmosphere in the original creation. So this is called the Canopy Theory. There are some various versions, and there are some very knowledgeable creation scientists that believe in the Canopy Theory, and there are some that have other theories that they prefer over the Canopy Theory. So I don't know that this is how God did this, but let's look at this theory, because it does tend to explain a lot of potential pre-flood conditions.
Oh, good. Now you're going to present some evidence. I'm really, really interested in seeing this.
A vapor canopy or an ice canopy would have done a lot of neat things. It would have blocked out a lot of the X-rays and the UV radiation and gamma rays. A lot of the things that cause entropy and cancers on Earth today would have been blocked out, yet it would have allowed visible light to come through to be seen for signs of the seasons and such.
Here's a free tip for you, Russ. Don't get your science from Kent Hovind, because, frankly, he knows fuck all. But you copied it directly from him. The reality is water vapor is really good at absorbing red light and yellow light, the spectra of light that plants require for photosynthesis. This is why plants in the ocean tend to use other photosynthetic chemicals, or the ones that do use chlorophyll tend to be right at the surface or in the intertidal zone. Likewise, water vapor sucks at blocking out UV radiation. It sucks at blocking out X-rays. It sucks at blocking out gamma radiation. This is why, with the UV, this is why they always warn you when you're swimming and you're in the water, you can get a really bad sunburn. This is why they say, even if it's a cloudy day in the tropics, to wear sunscreen, because water vapor doesn't block the UV light. So, you're completely wrong here.
This canopy could have also created a worldwide hyperbaric effect and a worldwide greenhouse effect. Let's take a look at these two potential effects. This is a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. They're used in hospitals around the globe because by greatly increasing oxygen pressure, they greatly reduce the amount of time it takes to heal up from injuries or surgeries.
All right, hold the presses. Russ actually said something that's more or less true. I think it's a first. The reality is hyperbaric medicine is used. It's used to speed up the healing of certain kinds of injuries and certain kinds of surgeries. However, it comes with a number of health risks, which is why it's when it's being used, patients are monitored very closely. There's oxygen toxicity. There's a number of other health problems that come from it, including blindness is one of the fairly common side effects of it because the oxygen reacts, and I'm not entirely sure the biochemical pathway, but the high oxygen pressure tends to increase the speed at which cataracts form. But that's all on the side. Yes, it is used in particular cases, especially when healing is being slowed by other things like extreme low blood pressure and things like that, where the tissues aren't receiving enough oxygen. It is indicated that a hyperbaric chamber might be used. But to say that it's some magical thing that makes us all superior thing, you have to ask yourself this. If it was this great, how come every hospital isn't using it for every surgery and every injury?
This from New Geology. Coal layers in the Arctic Circle uniformly testify that a warm climate has in former times prevailed over the whole globe. At one time in the past, things were totally different than what we see today.
Seriously, Russ, you're gonna quote George McCready Price as evidence for your claim here? That's pretty interesting, considering I think you could have found a lot more modern sources. Again, I suspect that you're simply cutting and pasting from another creationist, maybe Hovind, maybe somebody else, I don't know. But the fact that you wouldn't find a more modern source, you do realize that the New Geology was written in 1923. 1923 was when that book was published. George McCready Price was a young Earth creationist, one of the founders of the 20th century young creationism movement, and heavily influenced people like Henry Morris. However, I find it interesting. So then, if he's an expert on it, which, by the way, George McCready Price had no formal education in any of the sciences whatsoever. He wrote a lot of books, very prolific author. Do you know that he also believed that chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans were further degenerations of the races after the fall of the Tower of Babel, meaning that after God scattered people, and then they apparently, after the scattering, he hypothesized that the races tried to mix together, and as punishment, God made the offspring gorillas, chimps, and orangutans as the offspring of hybridized blacks, Caucasians, and Asians. I'm not saying that being wrong on one point makes him wrong on every point, but I just think it's interesting that you would cite him like that, and not even mention what year. You don't put the year on that. You cite the book it's from, but you don't cite the year of publication. Again, it doesn't. The fact of the matter is there are coal deposits in the Arctic Circle. The fact of the matter is that there are fossils indicating warm temperatures in a lot of places that are currently Arctic or subarctic, due to continental drift, due to a number of other features. But I just find it really amusing that you throw that out there, and I'm going to take a guess that you probably don't even know the source of that. So,
Dr. Komori in Japan did an experiment to imitate these pre-flood conditions. He raised cherry tomato plants, but he put them in a greenhouse to filter out the UV light and gamma rays, and he pressurized CO2 and applied it to the stem of the plants to imitate that hyperbaric condition.
I don't know how you can look yourself in the mirror, you fucktard. There are so many things wrong with your little tale here about Ki Mori. Okay, first of all, and I challenge any of you watching this, okay, go to Google and Google Ki Mori tomato. Ki Mori whatever, okay? Anything to do with tomatoes, any elements of the story that Russ just told there. And you know what you're going to get? You're going to get thousands of hits, every single one of them. They vary in details, every single one of them a creationist site, right? You're not going to find any other source. You would think with something this amazing that there would be, other pages at least reporting it, at least reporting what happened, correct? You would think that would be the case. But there's not. Now, just for shits and giggles, Google Himawari sunlight systems, which is what Ki Mori developed. Google that, and what do you know? There's a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, the company itself, linked down below, has on its webpage. very, very brief, unfortunately, but descriptions of exactly what happened. The system that was developed had nothing to do with Kimori trying to test pre-flood conditions. That's completely made up. There wasn't a dome that filtered out UV light, or a greenhouse that filtered out UV light and gamma radiation, as Russ said, as Ken Hovind said, as Venom Fang X repeated as well. Okay, none of that is true. What Kimori did as an engineer was he developed a way to deliver through fiber optics and a series of lenses natural sunlight into the interior of buildings. Okay, this is very important in places like Tokyo, in urban areas where there are large apartment complexes. The system was developed as a way to deliver sunlight, not just to grow plants, but also just for in general. Okay, the Himawari sunlight system is a way to, you can have natural sunlight that, you know, increases and decreases just like it would outside. However, it doesn't transmit the UV rays. It doesn't raise the temperature of the building at all. So it doesn't transmit the heat. That's the advantage of it. The 1985 Expo, where this system was demonstrated, used a plant, this tomato plant, that was very large, grown in a nutrient bath. There's absolutely no evidence outside of these creationist sites that any pressurized CO2 or pressurized gases of any kind were delivered to the plant. That seems to be a part of the story, like many that were added to it by these creationist liars. It was grown in a nutrient bath, but the point of showing the plant was that the plant was grown entirely under this artificial light, demonstrating in a very dramatic form that you can actually grow plants, that the necessary sunlight required for plant growth is transmitted by the Himawari sunlight system. Okay, so they took a fairly legitimate invention, kind of an interesting invention. If you go to the website, it actually sounds really nice. I mean, it sounds like something's like, wow, someday if I was a millionaire, I'd sure like to have that in my house. But they took it, they altered elements of it, they completely bastardized the story into something, and it's really funny is you can't even see, if you read the different versions of it, they don't even get it right. Some say a dome, some say a greenhouse, some say a filter of unknown. They can't get the size of the plant correct. They can't get the number of tomatoes correct. They can't get the size of the tomatoes correct. They can't get the delivery system of the whatever, whether it's nutrient bath or pressurized gases. They can't even get the reason why correct. They all are claiming that Kimori was somehow, you know, I don't know, a young Earth creationist just desperately trying to prove the Canopy Theory. Bullshit.
I was in Texas a few years ago, and they were running some experiments on hyperbaric chambers, and they put some fruit flies in the chambers. I was there on day 18. These guys usually only live 3 days. I was there on day 18. They were going strong. That was over a 500% increase in their lifespans.
Russ. I'm really curious here. I have a couple of questions for you. When you mentioned this experiment, this fascinating experiment, I'm curious as to why you didn't mention to the audience where specifically you were. Where did you see this incredible, groundbreaking science experiment going on? Why do you just say, while in Texas you saw, and then using the term they did, what they did, right? Is it possible that you were trying to imply that the they was a qualified scientific research team, that where it occurred in Texas, maybe Texas A&M, another university, maybe some experimental research lab where this incredible work was going on by qualified researchers? Is that possible that you were trying to imply that by not stating the details, when in fact, I know where this study was done, study in quotes here, was done at Carl Baugh's Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. And the researchers, the they that you're referring to, are Carl Baugh and Bayou Bob, his trusty little helper in this hyperbaric experiment. I'm just curious as to why you didn't state that. Why didn't you say that you saw at the Creation Evidence Museum Carl Baugh and Bayou Bob? doing a fruit fly experiment. I'm just curious. I don't know. I suspect it's because by saying it the way you did, it might carry a little bit more weight. That's just what I think that is. Kind of like back earlier when you didn't mention that George McCready Price was a young Earth creationist and not an actual geologist, and that the book, that kind of thing. You're trying to make your evidence sound a lot more credible than it actually is. However, I am intrigued by the experiment. I'm going to admit that. I find it interesting. I think you might be onto something. If I could only find any kind of a flaw with your argument. I mean, a fruit fly lives only 3 days, and it's alive after 18 days in this hyperbaric chamber. I mean, that certainly seems like really powerful evidence, that extended lifespans are possible. If there was anything, if I can find just one thing wrong with it. Oh, wait a second. The average lifespan of a fruit fly is 30 fucking days, you asshole. 30 days. If your fruit flies were alive after 18 days, they were just over middle-aged. And that is 30 days in our corrupt post-flood atmosphere. They live 30 days. Even longer under different temperature regimes. That's the average lifespan of a fruit fly is 30 days. So you're just talking out of your ass.
In fact, the ancient Chinese had a legend called the story of Fu Hai, who they considered to be the father of their civilization. The ancient Chinese legend goes that Fu Hai, his wife, 3 sons and 3 daughters, survived a worldwide flood in a boat and repopulated the world. Sounds almost exactly like the biblical account.
Pretty interesting account, don't you think? That sounds enormously like the account in Genesis, Noah's flood and everything. It's remarkable from a completely different culture. But I wonder, how old is this legend, this Chinese legend? How old is it? Is it 1,000 years? 2,000? 3,000? How old is this story? It would be really neat to find out how old it is. Well, it turns out we know exactly how old it is. And oddly enough, the story's not from ancient China. The story is from the United States. The story was from 1931 in a book called The Deluge Story in Stone by Byron C. Nelson. Now, can you give me a hand here, Russ? What is it that you creationist fucktards do when you don't have evidence to support your claim? What is it you guys like to do?
He invented evidence.
He invented some evidence.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I almost forgot. So, Byron C. Nelson, in this book, reported this ancient Chinese legend, pretty much as Russ reported it here, stating that the ancient Chinese had this story. When in fact, the story he was basing this on differed in a few small details from how he reported it. For example, the main character he reported as Fu Hai, when in reality the main character in the story was Kun. Now you might say, well, big fucking deal, right? How's the name a little different? Big deal. Except what did Kun do? Did Kun build an ark and save 3 sons, 3 daughters from drowning in a flood? No. Turns out what Kun did is Kun noticed that the river was flooding and was feared that the entire world would be destroyed. So what Kun did is he stole from the great gods a piece of primordial earth, a piece of primordial creation, dammed the river with it, or tried to dam the river with it. Before he could succeed, the gods noticed that what he had done, and since they had intended on allowing him to save the earth, but at an appointed time, they killed him. They later regretted what they had done, so they brought him back to life. Kun had a son. His son was then commanded by the gods to take the primordial earth, dam the river, and prevent the earth from being destroyed in the first place. That's the story that Byron Nelson altered slightly to make it sound remarkably like the Genesis account. What this shows me, 1931, 80 years ago, creationists were just as big a douchebags as they are now. Russ comes from a very noble lineage of fucking liars. Alright, I'm going to call it quits on part 1. I will take this up in part 2. We're going to discuss kinds on the Ark. It's a fun subject.